My name is Madison Hayes, 29 years old, and after 4 long years serving in Afghanistan, I was finally coming home for Christmas. The tree, the lights, Mom's apple pie, my siblings' laughter, I had dreamed of it all. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Dad: "Christmas is better without you. Better not come." I only replied, "Understood." 5 days later, I had 10 missed calls from my family, including one from their lawyer. Let me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button, as I share how my homecoming turned into something I never expected. Growing up in Cedarville, Ohio wasn't anything special. Our town had one main street, 3 churches, and enough gossip to fill a library. My father, Richard Hayes, worked at the local manufacturing plant, climbing from floor worker to operations manager through sheer force of will and what my mother, Eleanor, called stubborn determination. He was the kind of man who commanded respect simply by walking into a room, 6'2" with shoulders like an oak door, and a voice that never needed raising to be heard. I was the middle child of 3. My older brother Jackson had followed Dad's footsteps into management, while my younger sister Abigail was still in college studying education. Mom kept our household running with quiet efficiency, her gentle nature balancing Dad's rigidity. Our home was orderly, expectations were clear, and disappointment was something to be avoided at all costs. From an early age, I knew I didn't quite fit the mold Dad had in mind. He'd wanted another son. He never said it outright, but it was there in 1,000 little ways. The hunting trips where I was an afterthought. The way his face would tighten when I chose books over baseball. How he'd introduce us. "This is my son Jackson, my daughter Abigail, and Madison." Just Madison. Not my daughter Madison, just Madison. When I announced my decision to join the Army after high school, the temperature in our house dropped 20 degrees. Mom worried silently, Abigail cried. Jackson offered awkward support. But Dad looked at me like I'd betrayed him somehow. "The military. What do you know about service?" he'd scoffed at dinner. "You can barely handle your chores around here. This is just another one of your impulsive decisions." "I've thought about this for years, Dad," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want to serve. I want to do something meaningful." Meaningful. His laugh was sharp enough to cut. "You want to run away, that's what this is. And when it gets too hard, you'll come running back like always." That night I heard my parents arguing. Mom's soft pleas to support me. Dad's firm declaration that I was making a mistake. "She's doing this to spite me, Eleanor, to prove some point." The day I left for basic training, Mom hugged me until I couldn't breathe. Abigail made me promise to write. Jackson awkwardly punched my shoulder and said, "Show 'em what Hayes are made of, sis." Dad shook my hand formally like I was a stranger and said, "When you're ready to come home, the door's open." 4 years passed. Afghanistan wasn't what I expected, both harder and more rewarding than I could have imagined. I learned discipline, leadership, and courage under fire. My unit became family. We celebrated birthdays with stale cake, comforted each other after hard missions, and shared pictures from home like precious artifacts. I rose to staff sergeant, specialized in logistics, and earned commendations my father never acknowledged. Mom's letters were full of hometown news and gentle inquiries about my return. Abigail sent care packages with handmade cookies and colorful socks. Jackson's occasional emails were brief but supportive. Dad's communications were rare. A Christmas card signed by the whole family. A terse email when I was promoted. "Congratulations. Stay safe." A birthday message that read more like a weather report. "Your mother made your favorite cake. Abigail is doing well in school. The roof needed repairs." This Christmas was supposed to be different. After 4 years overseas, I had finally secured holiday leave. I'd been planning for months, saving money for gifts, arranging flights, coordinating with Mom to surprise everyone. In my bunk at night, I imagined the scene: the taxi pulling up to our snow-covered house, the Christmas lights twinkling, the door opening to shocked faces and then joyful tears. I pictured Dad's expression most of all, how his stern face would finally soften with pride. Maybe finally he would see me as I was, rather than what I wasn't. My unit friends helped me pick out presents. For Mom, a hand-carved jewelry box from a local Afghan artisan. For Abigail, a collection of exotic teas and a handmade scarf. For Jackson and his new wife, a set of traditional Afghan serving dishes. And for Dad, I'd spent weeks agonizing over his gift. Finally, I settled on a vintage compass from a military surplus store restored and polished to a high shine. I had it engraved, "To guide you home, Madison." "Your dad's gonna love that," my friend Stephanie said, as I wrapped it carefully in tissue paper. "It's thoughtful, but not too sentimental. Perfect dad gift." I nodded, but doubt gnawed at me. Would he see the meaning behind it? Would anything ever be enough? "Just wait till they see you in uniform," said Marcus, another friend in my unit. "Parents eat that stuff up. Your dad's gonna be bragging to everyone in town." I smiled and let them believe. It was easier than explaining the complicated truth that my father had never once said he was proud of my service. That in 4 years, he had never asked a single question about what I actually did in the Army. As December approached, I confirmed my leave, booked my flights, and emailed Mom the details. Her response was enthusiastic. "We can't wait to have you home. I won't tell anyone else. It'll be our secret surprise. Dad's been talking about having the whole family together for Christmas dinner. This will be perfect." Those words gave me hope. Dad had been talking about the whole family. Maybe things had changed. Maybe time and distance had softened his disappointment in me. Maybe this Christmas would finally bridge the gap between us. The night before my departure, I couldn't sleep. I repacked my bags 3 times, checked my flight information repeatedly, and scrolled through old family photos on my phone. In every picture with Dad, I was standing slightly apart, my smile a bit too eager, his arm never quite reaching around my shoulders. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow I would come home a changed person. Stronger, more confident, accomplished. Surely he would see that. Surely this time I would be enough. The 18th of December dawned bright and clear in Bagram. My bags were packed, paperwork processed, and transportation to the airfield arranged. I'd said goodbye to most of my unit the night before, at an impromptu party where they presented me with a gag gift of earmuffs for all that Ohio snow, and a real gift, a beautiful silver photo frame, engraved with our unit insignia. "For your family picture when you get home," Stephanie said, hugging me tight. "We want proof that the legendary Hayes family Christmas is as perfect as you've described." As I waited for my ride to the airfield, my phone buzzed with a message notification. Expecting last-minute well wishes from a friend, I smiled as I opened it. The smile froze on my face. "Madison," my father's message read, "I've been thinking about your visit. Christmas is better without you. Better not come. Your mother is stressed enough preparing for Jackson's in-laws. Abigail is bringing her new boyfriend. We don't need the disruption. Maybe Easter instead." I read the message 3 times, each word cutting deeper than the last. Christmas is better without you. Not Christmas will be complicated. Or, could you change your dates? But better without you. As if my presence would diminish rather than enhance the holiday. My hands trembled as I typed and deleted multiple responses. What could I possibly say? Finally, I sent a single word: understood. I sat motionless, as the desert sun blazed through the window, casting harsh shadows across the barren room. A knock at my door barely registered. "Hayes, your transport's here," called a voice. "I'm not going," I replied, my voice hollow even to my own ears. "What, your flight leaves in 3 hours? Is everything okay?" I showed Marcus the message, watching his expression shift from confusion to outrage. "That's messed up," he said finally. "Like seriously messed up. Have you called your mom?" I shook my head. She must agree with him. She's always followed his lead. "You don't know that. Call her." I tried. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried my sister with the same result. My brother's phone rang but no answer. I even tried our landline, something we rarely used anymore. Nothing. Maybe it's a misunderstanding, Marcus suggested, but his tone made it clear he didn't believe that any more than I did. I forwarded the message to my commanding officer, explaining my changed plans. Within an hour, my leave was officially cancelled. My seat on the transport reassigned. "You can still take the leave," my CO said kindly. "Go somewhere else. Hawaii's nice this time of year." But I couldn't imagine celebrating anywhere. The Christmas spirit that had buoyed me for weeks vanished like morning mist. I volunteered to cover shifts for others who had family waiting, throwing myself into work to avoid thinking about what might have been. The base transformed for the holidays. A massive artificial tree appeared in the mess hall, decorated with handmade ornaments and battery-operated lights. Care packages arrived by the truckload, bringing cookies, candy, and cards from strangers thanking us for our service. Christmas music played over the PA system during mealtimes. Each festive touch was another twist of the knife. I avoided the communal areas when possible, taking my meals at odd hours and volunteering for the most tedious inventory tasks to keep busy. 3 days after the message, my commanding officer found me in the supply depot counting boxes of MREs. "Hayes," she said, "everything okay? You've been working non-stop." I straightened up, automatically adopting parade rest. "Yes, ma'am. Just staying busy." Lieutenant Colonel Winters studied me with knowing eyes. At 42, she'd been in the Army longer than some of our youngest recruits had been alive. Nothing escaped her notice. "I heard about your Christmas plans falling through," she said. "That's rough." "It's fine, ma'am. Family circumstances change." "They do," she agreed. "And sometimes family disappoint us in ways we never expected." She handed me a folder. "Here's the thing, Hayes. The USO is arranging a special Christmas event in Germany for troops who can't make it home. 3 days at a resort, all expenses paid. I've put your name down." I started to protest, but she held up her hand. "That's an order, Staff Sergeant. You've earned a break and you're taking one. Transport leaves tomorrow at 0600. As she turned to leave, she added quietly, "Sometimes the family we choose is more important than the family we're born into. Remember that." That night, I checked my phone for the 100th time. No messages, no missed calls, no explanations. I typed out a message to my mother. "Did Dad tell you I'm not coming home?" I stared at it for 10 minutes before deleting it. If she wanted to contact me, she would. I packed a small bag for Germany. My movements mechanical. The excitement I'd felt preparing for Ohio had been replaced by a dull acceptance. This was just another example of not being wanted, not being enough. A pattern established long ago, reinforced with each interaction. As I zipped my duffel bag, my phone buzzed with a message notification. My heart leapt, then immediately sank when I saw it wasn't from my parents, but from my sister Abigail. "Something weird is going on with Dad," the message read. "He's been acting strange. Locked himself in his office for hours. Mom's worried. Are you still coming home?" I frowned reading the message again. So Dad hadn't told them about uninviting me. I typed back, "Dad told me not to come. Said Christmas would be better without me." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "What? That makes no sense. We've been planning for weeks. Mom bought your favorite coffee creamer. I made up your old room." Before I could respond, another message came through. "Wait. I hear Mom and Dad arguing. Gotta go. We'll call when I can." I waited an hour, then 2. No call came. I tried calling Abigail back, but like before, it went straight to voicemail. Something wasn't adding up, but I was too hurt and confused to make sense of it. Eventually, I fell into a restless sleep, dreams filled with Christmas trees that turned their backs on me and family dinner tables where my chair kept disappearing. Germany was beautiful in December. The resort the USO had arranged was nestled in the Bavarian Alps, with snow-covered peaks visible from every window. Under different circumstances, I would have been enchanted. Instead, I moved through the festive atmosphere like a ghost, participating in activities with forced smiles, retreating to my room whenever possible to check my phone. Still nothing from my parents, but Abigail had sent another cryptic message. Dad took all the mail from the last month, freaked out when Mom asked about it. Something's wrong, but he won't talk. Should I be worried about the house? I stared at the message, baffled. The house? What did mail have to do with our house? I replied, asking for clarification, but received only, "Can't talk now. We'll try to call tomorrow." That call never came either. My worry began to overshadow my hurt. This wasn't just about me anymore. Something was happening at home that had my sister concerned enough to reach out, despite Dad's apparent edict against contacting me. On Christmas Eve, I skipped the resort's gala dinner and instead sat cross-legged on my bed with my laptop. If my family wouldn't tell me what was happening, perhaps I could find out another way. I started with social media. Mom rarely posted, but her friend Judy Wilson was the neighborhood gossip and documented everything online. Scrolling through Judy's page, I found recent photos of community events, and there was my father in the background of several, looking harried and tense as he spoke with men I didn't recognize. More concerning was what I found on our town's local news page, a notice about zoning changes for residential properties with our street specifically mentioned. And then buried in the public records section of the county website, a permit application for major renovations at our address, filed just 2 weeks ago. My father was planning to renovate our house in winter, without mentioning it to anyone. I expanded my search. A local real estate blog mentioned increasing property values in our neighborhood following announcement of a new commercial development nearby. Properties were selling for 30% above previous valuations. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. I reached for my phone and called Rhonda Maxwell, our next-door neighbor since I was 5 years old. It was late in Ohio, but Rhonda was a night owl. "Madison," she exclaimed when she answered. "Aren't you supposed to be here? Your mom's been talking about your visit for months." "There's been a change of plans," I said carefully. "Rhonda, have you noticed anything unusual happening at our house lately?" There was a pause. "Well, there have been some men coming by. Surveyors, I think. Your dad said something about fixing the foundation, but they were measuring the whole property. And there was a real estate agent there on Tuesday." My heart sank. "A real estate agent? Are you sure?" "Positive. I recognized her from her billboard ads. Tanya something. I asked your dad if you were moving, and he got real short with me. Said it was just an assessment for insurance." Insurance companies don't send real estate agents to do assessments. I thanked Rhonda and hung up, mind racing. What was my father up to, and why the secrecy? Why tell me not to come home right, when he was clearly making significant decisions about our family home? The next morning, Christmas Day, I woke to an email from Jackson. The subject line was simply, "Call me ASAP." I dialed immediately despite the early hour. "Madison?" he answered, his voice tense. "Where are you?" "Germany. Dad told me not to come home for Christmas." "What, when?" 5 days ago, right before I was supposed to leave." Jackson swore under his breath. "That explains so much. Listen, something weird is going on. Dad's acting like he's about to jump out of his skin. He's been drinking more than usual, disappearing for hours, and he nearly bit my head off when I asked about the strange car in the driveway." "A real estate agent's car? How did you know?" "I've been doing some digging. Jackson, I think Dad's planning to sell the house." "What? No way. That house has been in the family for generations. Grandma would never allow it." "Is Grandma there for Christmas?" "No, that's another weird thing. Dad told everyone she's sick and can't travel, but I called the nursing home this morning to wish her Merry Christmas and she said she's fine. Said Dad canceled her visit 2 weeks ago, claiming Mom was coming down with something contagious." The pieces were starting to fit together, forming a picture I didn't want to see. "Jackson, can you check something for me? Go look at the mail, especially any letters from the VA or military addresses." "Why would—" "Wait. This is about your benefits, isn't it? The ones you have? Mom manage while you're deployed. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. When I'd enlisted, I'd set up an allotment from my pay to go to my parents' account each month to help with family expenses, to a gesture I'd hoped would prove my commitment to family. Mom was supposed to be managing it, saving some for my eventual return. "I'll check," Jackson promised. "And Madison, I'm sorry about whatever Dad said to keep you away. We all wanted you here." After we hung up, I pulled up my bank records on my laptop. The monthly allotments had gone out regularly, over $1,000 each month for 4 years. That was over $48,000, meant to help the family and build my future. What had happened to that money? I called a battle buddy who worked in JAG, Military Legal Services. Hypothetically, I asked, after exchanging Christmas wishes, if a family member had access to a service member's benefits and misused them, what would happen? "Depends on the situation," she replied cautiously. "Are we talking about dependent benefits allotments, or what?" "Allotments that were supposed to be partially saved. If they had authorization to receive the funds but misrepresented how they were being used, it could be considered fraud, especially if documents were falsified." "Why is someone messing with your money, Hayes?" "Just exploring options," I said lightly, though my stomach was in knots. I spent the rest of Christmas Day piecing together a disturbing picture. More research into county records revealed a tax lien on my parents' property from 2 years ago, something that should have been impossible with the money I was sending home. A deep dive into local news archives turned up a small item about the manufacturing plant where my father worked, implementing early retirement packages, had my father lost his job, without telling anyone. By evening, I had a theory that made my heart ache. My father was in financial trouble, possibly gambling or otherwise losing money. He'd been using my military allotment to cover his tracks, possibly forging documents to access more of my benefits than he was entitled to. Now he was planning to sell our family home before I came back and discovered what he'd done. It explained the desperate message keeping me away, the secrecy, the strange behavior my siblings were reporting. It explained everything, except how my father could betray me, betray our entire family, so completely. Jackson called again late that night. "You were right," he said without preamble. "I found letters from the VA in Dad's desk, and Madison, your signature is on them. Except, I know it's not your signature, because you don't make your M like that." The floor seemed to drop away beneath me. He forged my signature. On what? Something about redirecting disability benefits. And there's a document authorizing a loan against your GI Bill education benefits. Madison, what's going on? "I don't know yet," I said slowly. "But I'm going to find out. Jackson, don't confront Dad. Don't let on that we've spoken. I need to handle this carefully." "What are you going to do?" I looked at my reflection in the window, seeing not the hurt daughter, but the soldier I'd become, disciplined, strategic, and unwilling to accept defeat. "I'm coming home," I said. "Not for Christmas, for justice." I landed in Columbus, Ohio, on the 27th of December, rented a car, and drove the familiar route to Cedarville in silence. Snow blanketed the countryside, transforming the winter-dead landscape into something pristine and beautiful. Under different circumstances, it would have felt like coming home. Instead, I drove past our family house, without stopping, noting the unfamiliar car in the driveway and the Davis Realty sign partially hidden behind a bush. My father was moving quickly. I checked into the Cedarville Inn under my married friend's name, paying cash. Then I called Timothy Fletcher, a high school friend, who had become a financial advisor at the local bank. "Madison Hayes," he said, when we met in the coffee shop an hour later. "The prodigal daughter returns. I thought you weren't coming home this Christmas." "Change of plans," I said. "Tim, I need your help with something sensitive." His smile faded as I explained my suspicions. "That's a serious accusation, Madison. Your father is well respected in this community." "I know. That's why I need to be certain before I do anything. Can you help me check if there have been unusual financial activities? Tim hesitated. I can't access private records without authorization, but, he lowered his voice, there have been rumors. Your dad's name has come up in conversations with other financial professionals. Nothing specific, just concerns about some irregular transactions. What kind of transactions? Large cash withdrawals, transfers to accounts in Nevada, and recently inquiries about quick-sale real estate options below market valuations. My breath caught. Nevada was known for its casinos. Gambling. Tim spread his hands. I can't confirm that. But about 6 months ago, the regional manager of First National mentioned your father had maxed out a home equity line of credit and was seeking additional loans, using property as collateral. Property that wasn't entirely his to leverage, not if my money had been going into it for years. I thanked Tim, and left my next destination already planned, the office of Howard Bennett, our family lawyer since before I was born. The receptionist at Bennett Law Offices didn't recognize me at first. When I identified myself, her eyes widened. Miss Hayes, Mr. Bennett has been trying to reach you. He left multiple messages. I've been overseas, I said. Military service makes communication difficult sometimes. 5 minutes later, I was seated across from Howard Bennett, whose gray eyebrows knitted together as he studied me. Madison, he said finally. I've known you since you were in pigtails, so I'm going to be direct. Are you aware that your father is attempting to sell your family home? I just found out. What I don't understand is how he can do that. The house was my grandparents' originally. Shouldn't my grandmother still have some ownership? Bennett nodded gravely. That's precisely why I've been trying to reach you. Your grandmother Rose transferred her interest in the property to you, and your siblings equally when your grandfather died. It was her way of protecting the family legacy while avoiding estate taxes. Your father only owns 1/5 of that house. You, Jackson, and Abigail each own 1/5, as does your mother. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the winter weather. So he can't sell without our consent. Technically, no. But Bennett pulled a document from a folder. He presented these consent forms supposedly signed by all parties. When I saw your signature, I knew something was wrong. The Madison Hayes I know has been meticulous about legal matters since she helped revise the Student Council Constitution in high school. You would never sign a document without reading every word. He slid the paper across to me. There was my supposed signature, a reasonable facsimile, but as Jackson had noted, the M was formed differently than my own distinctive style. There's more, Bennett continued, pulling out additional documents. Your father has been leveraging your military benefits in concerning ways. He presented a power of attorney document that gave him control over your finances, but the notarization is questionable at best. And there are these loan applications using your GI Bill benefits as collateral. I flipped through the papers, each one another blow to my already shattered trust. How much has he taken? Bennett's expression was grim. Based on these documents alone, close to $100, 000. And that's not counting the equity he's trying to extract from the house sale. Why? I whispered. Why would he do this? Madison, I've been friends with Richard Hayes for 30 years. I've golfed with him, attended church with him, watched our children grow up together. About 2 years ago he changed, became secretive, started missing our regular lunches. Through mutual friends I heard rumors about gambling debts. Atlantic City, Las Vegas, even online poker. I tried to talk to him but he shut me out. And no one told me. Not even my mother. Bennett sighed. Your mother may not know the extent of it. Richard handles all their finances. As for why no one told you, well, you were serving your country overseas. What could you have done from Afghanistan? What indeed, I thought bitterly. I could have stopped the allotments, could have protected my benefits, could have known that the father who rejected my homecoming was not just being cruel, but covering his tracks. What happens now? I asked. That depends on you. If you want to press charges for forgery and fraud, there's more than enough evidence. It would mean your father facing criminal penalties. And if I don't? You could still block the sale of the house legally as a partial owner. You could demand repayment of the misappropriated funds. But Madison, his voice softened. Whatever you decide, this will change your family forever. I'm so sorry. I left Bennett's office with copies of all the documents and a hollow feeling in my chest. The betrayal was worse than I had imagined, not just my father stealing from me, but from the entire family risking our home and legacy for whatever addiction had him in its grip. My next stop was the nursing home where my grandmother lived. Rose Hayes had raised 5 children, buried a husband and 2 sons, and never lost her sharp mind or sharper tongue. If anyone would give me the unvarnished truth, it would be Grandma Rose. I found her in the community room, holding court among fellow residents as they played cards. At 87, she was still a force of nature. Her white hair perfectly styled her posture, military straight. "Well, look what the cat dragged in," she announced when she saw me. "My soldier granddaughter back from the wars." She dismissed her card partners with a wave and patted the seat beside her. "Sit. Tell me why you're sneaking around town instead of being at the family Christmas." "How did you know I was sneaking around?" "Margaret at the front desk is my informant. Said you signed in under family friend instead of granddaughter. Not hard to figure out something's amiss." She fixed me with a penetrating stare. "What's Richard done now?" The direct question broke something in me. For the first time since receiving my father's message, I felt tears threaten. "How did you know it was about Dad?" "Because that son of mine has been acting like he's sitting on a cactus for months. Cancelled my Christmas visit with a transparent lie. Hasn't visited me himself in weeks after years of Sunday visits like clockwork. And he's been asking strange questions about the house deed." She reached for my hand. "Tell me everything, Madison. No sugarcoating." So I did. As the winter afternoon faded to evening, I laid out the whole sordid story. The uninvite, the forged documents, the misappropriated benefits, the attempted house sale. Grandma Rose listened without interruption, her face growing sterner with each revelation. When I finished, she was silent for a long moment. Then she reached for her purse and extracted a cell phone that looked incongruously modern in her wizened hands. "Margaret," she barked when someone answered. "I need a car. Yes now. Family emergency. And call my lawyer. The young one, not Howard. Tell him to meet me at my old house in 1 hour." She turned to me after hanging up. "You have 2 choices, Madison. Hide in that motel feeling sorry for yourself or stand up and fight for what's yours." "What's ours?" "The Hayes family legacy isn't Richard's to gamble away." "What are you planning?" I asked, recognizing the determined set of her jaw, the same expression I saw in the mirror when facing a difficult mission. "An ambush," she said grimly. "Military term, isn't it? We're going to catch your father with nowhere to run. No more lies, no more secrets. Tonight." As I helped my grandmother to her feet, I realized the tactical planning skills I'd learned in the army hadn't come from nowhere. Grandma Rose had been executing precision strikes for decades. "One question," I said as we walked slowly to the exit. "Did you know about Dad's gambling, I mean?" She sighed suddenly, looking every one of her 87 years. "I suspected. Your grandfather had the same weakness. It's why I put protections on the house when I transferred ownership. I just never thought Richard would go so far as to forge documents and steal from his own daughter." Her eyes, so like my own, hardened with resolve. "But I promise you this, Madison. He won't get away with it. Not while I'm still breathing." As we drove through the snowy streets toward my childhood home, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The hurt child had receded, replaced by the soldier I had become, mission-focused, strategic, and prepared for whatever battle lay ahead. Grandma Rose's young lawyer turned out to be Alicia Ramirez, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with a no-nonsense manner that matched my grandmother's perfectly. "I've reviewed the documents," Mr. Bennett forwarded, she said, as we huddled in her car, a block from my family home. The forgeries are amateur at best. We have more than enough to pursue criminal charges. That's not my goal, I said quietly. I want to protect my family, my mother, my siblings, my grandmother, and recover what was taken. Criminal charges are a last resort. Alicia nodded. Then we approach this as a family intervention with legal teeth. We present the evidence, offer a structured repayment plan, and secure the house against further attempts to sell. But Madison, her voice softened slightly, you should prepare yourself. Addicts rarely respond well to being cornered, even when the intervention comes from a place of love. This isn't about love, Grandma Rose interjected. This is about accountability. Richard needs to face the consequences of his actions, even if those consequences don't include jail time. While Alicia made calls to ensure all the legal documents were in order, I contacted Jackson and Abigail separately, asking them to meet me at a nearby restaurant in 30 minutes. I needed to brief them before confronting our father. Jackson arrived first, giving me a bone-crushing hug. I still can't believe Dad told you not to come home. We've been talking about your visit for months. Abigail rushed in. Moments later, her face tear-streaked. Madison? What's going on? Dad's been acting crazy. Mom's barely speaking, and then you show up secretly. Are we in danger? Or something? I took a deep breath and laid out everything I'd discovered. The gambling, the forged documents, the financial deception, the attempted house sale. Their expressions shifted from disbelief to horror to anger as the full picture emerged. That son of a bitch, Jackson muttered, his hands clenching into fists. I'm going to kill him. No, you're not, I said firmly. We're going to handle this as a family with legal protection in place. No violence, no screaming matches. We present the evidence, offer a path forward, and make it clear that this ends tonight. What about Mom? Abigail asked, her voice small. Do you think she knew? I hesitated. I don't know. That's one of the things we need to find out. But regardless, we approach this, assuming she's another victim, not an accomplice. Agreed. They nodded, and I continued outlining the plan. We would arrive at the house together with Grandma Rose and Alicia joining us. Jackson would secure any financial documents in the home office to prevent destruction of evidence. Abigail would ensure Mom was okay and keep her calm. I would lead the confrontation with Alicia, providing legal framework, and Grandma Rose the moral authority. The goal is resolution, not retribution. I reminded them, channeling the leadership training that had become second nature during my service. We're not trying to destroy Dad. We're trying to save what's left of our family. As we walked toward the house, Abigail clutched my arm. I'm scared, Madison. I've never seen Dad like this before. Yesterday he yelled at Mom for asking about the real estate sign. He's never yelled at her before. I squeezed her hand. That's why we're doing this now, before things get worse. Grandma Rose and Alicia were waiting in the driveway as planned. With a nod to each other, we approached the front door, the same door I'd imagined welcoming me home for a joyous Christmas reunion just days earlier. Jackson used his key and we entered quietly. Christmas decorations were still up, the tree in the corner, stockings on the mantel, including one with my name. The sight sent a pang through my chest. They had prepared for my arrival, despite my father's message. We found Mom and Dad in the kitchen. Eleanor Hayes was at the sink washing dishes, her movements mechanical. Richard Hayes sat at the table with papers spread before him, a glass of whiskey at his elbow. He looked up as we entered, his expression shifting from surprise to alarm when he saw me, then to tightly controlled anger when he spotted Grandma Rose and the unfamiliar lawyer. "What is this?" he demanded, standing abruptly. "Madison, you're supposed to be in Afghanistan. And Mother, you should be at Pine Ridge. What's going on?" "That's what we'd all like to know," Richard. Grandma Rose said, her voice steely, as she lowered herself into a chair. "Sit down. We need to talk." "If this is about the house, I can explain," he began, his eyes darting between us. "It's a temporary measure, a refinancing strategy. Nothing to concern any of you. It's about more than the house, I said, placing the folder of documents on the table. It's about forgery, fraud, theft of military benefits, gambling debts. It's about lies, Dad. Years of them. The color drained from his face. Behind him, Mom turned from the sink, confusion and fear washing over her features. Richard, what is she talking about? For a moment I thought he might deny everything. Then his shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of him visibly. Eleanor, he said, not meeting her eyes, I've made some mistakes. Mistakes? Jackson echoed incredulously. Is that what you call stealing from your daughter? Forging documents? Trying to sell our family home behind everyone's backs? Dad flinched, but said nothing. Alicia stepped forward, professional and calm. Mr. Hayes, we have documented evidence of multiple fraudulent activities, including forgery of your daughter's signature on military benefit documents, unauthorized loans, using the GI Bill as collateral, and attempted property fraud related to the family home. These are serious offenses with potential criminal penalties. Criminal, Mom whispered, sinking into a chair. Richard, what have you done? I sat across from my father, forcing him to look at me. Why, Dad? Why did you tell me not to come home? Was it just to hide all this? Or has it always been because I'm not enough for you? His eyes, so like my own, finally met mine. It wasn't about you not being enough, Madison. It was about me not being enough, not being the father you deserved, not being the man I pretended to be. Explain, Grandma Rose commanded. All of it, from the beginning. And so, in the kitchen where we'd shared thousands of family meals, my father confessed his sins. The gambling that started as social poker games and spiraled into an addiction. The job loss he concealed 2 years ago, pretending to go to work while actually spending days at casinos. The initial borrowing from my military allotment that was supposed to be temporary but became a desperate attempt to cover mounting debts. I was going to pay it all back, he insisted, tears streaming down his weathered face. The house sale would have cleared everything with enough left to buy a smaller place. No one would have known. I would have known, I said quietly. I earned that money, Dad. Serving in a war zone while you were losing it at poker tables. How could you do this to me? To all of us? I was ashamed, he whispered. Each time I tried to stop, I just dug the hole deeper. And then you were coming home. You would have asked questions, wanted to know about the money you'd been sending. I couldn't face you. Mom's voice cut through the tension. You told our daughter not to come home for Christmas because you were covering up gambling debts. You let me believe she had changed her mind, that she wasn't coming after all. I cried for days, Richard. Days. I'm sorry, he said, the words seeming to cost him physically. I've destroyed everything. Not yet, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. But you were close. Alicia laid out the terms we had prepared. Dad would enter a treatment program for gambling addiction. He would sign a legally binding repayment agreement for all misappropriated funds. The house sale would be canceled immediately. Full financial disclosure would be required, with Mom taking control of all accounts. Any violation would result in criminal charges being filed. And one more thing, I added. You will tell me the truth, the complete truth, about why you've always been so distant with me. Was it really just disappointment that I wasn't a son? Or is there more? The question hung in the air between us. After a long moment, Dad spoke, his voice barely audible. I was afraid of you, Madison. Afraid because you remind me so much of my father, your grandfather. The same determination, the same unflinching honesty. He always saw right through me, knew my weaknesses. When you decided to join the army just like he had, I knew you'd become someone I couldn't manipulate or fool. Someone who would eventually see the truth about me. And what truth is that, I asked? That I'm weak. That I've always been weak. Your grandfather knew it. My mother knows it. And now all of you know it too. In that moment, looking at my broken father, I felt something unexpected: pity. Not forgiveness, not yet. but recognition that the man I'd spent my life trying to please had been waging his own battles all along. "Weakness isn't a death sentence, Dad," I said finally. "But dishonesty is the death of trust. If there's anything to salvage here, it starts with complete honesty from this moment forward." He nodded, tears falling freely now. "I'll do whatever it takes. I'll sign anything. Just, please don't give up on me completely." As Alicia produced the legal documents for signatures, I stepped outside onto the back porch, needing air. The night was clear and cold stars blazing overhead in the way they only do in winter. I heard the door open behind me and turned to see my mother. "I didn't know," she said immediately, "about any of it. I believed him when he said your allotment was going into a savings account for you. I believed him about everything." "I know, Mom." She stepped closer, her breath fogging in the cold air. "He called you that day, when he sent that terrible message. I overheard him say Christmas would be better without you. I confronted him afterward, demanded to know what he'd done. He claimed it was a misunderstanding, that he was talking about his boss who wanted to visit. I knew he was lying, but when I tried to call you, he said your unit had moved and the number wouldn't work." "He was desperate," I said. "Desperate people do unforgivable things." "Can you forgive him?" "Eventually." I looked up at the stars, thinking of nights in Afghanistan when these same stars had been my only connection to home. "I don't know, Mom, but I'm here now. We'll figure it out together." She hugged me then fiercely, as if making up for the Christmas embrace we should have shared days ago. "My brave girl," she whispered. "I'm so proud of you." Inside documents were signed, terms agreed upon, the first steps of a long recovery process set in motion. It wasn't the Christmas homecoming I had imagined, but as I looked around at my family, broken but not destroyed, wounded but still fighting, I realized it was perhaps the homecoming we all needed. The truth finally was on the table, and truth painful, as it was offered the only path forward. The days following our confrontation took on a surreal quality. Dad checked into a residential treatment program for gambling addiction the very next morning, driven there by Jackson in tense silence. Mom spent hours on the phone canceling the house sale, the real estate agent clearly baffled by the sudden reversal. Abigail took a leave of absence from college to help sort through the financial wreckage, and I extended my leave working remotely on necessary paperwork to reclaim my benefits. Grandma Rose moved back into the family home, temporarily taking up residence in the guest room, like a general establishing a command post. "Someone needs to keep this family on track," she announced, bringing with her a tattered account book from her own marriage. "Your grandfather had the same demon, Richard. The difference was, I controlled the money from day one." With Dad gone, the house felt both emptier and somehow freer. Years of tension I hadn't fully recognized dissipated, allowing us to speak more openly than we ever had before. "He was different when you were deployed," Abigail told me, as we sorted through the home office organizing financial documents, more critical of everything I did. Like he was transferring his disappointment in himself to everyone around him. "Classic addict behavior," I said, having spent hours researching gambling addiction since the confrontation. Deflection, projection, creating chaos to distract from their own actions. "Did you mean what you said about not pressing charges?" she asked, pausing with a folder in hand. I considered the question carefully. "Yes, but that doesn't mean there aren't consequences. The repayment plan Alicia drew up will take years to fulfill. Dad's going to be accountable to this family in ways he's never been before." Jackson was less forgiving. "He betrayed all of us, but especially you, Madison. 4 years of your hard-earned money gone. Your GI Bill compromised. How can you not want him to pay more severely?" "Because punishment won't recover what was lost," I explained one evening as we walked the snow-covered property. "Recovery might. Rehabilitation might. The dad we knew is gone, Jackson. Maybe he was never really that person to begin with, but the dad he becomes through this process, that's still to be determined." "You sound like one of those military leadership books," he grumbled, but there was less anger in his voice. 4 years in the army will do that to you, I smiled. You learn to focus on the mission, not the emotion. My mother's journey was perhaps the most difficult to witness. 30 years of marriage built on what she now realized was a foundation of half-truths and omissions. She swung between rage and grief sometimes in the same hour. I don't know who I've been living with, she confessed one night, as we sat by the Christmas tree that still stood in the living room, though December was giving way to January. All those years when money was tight, when we cut corners on groceries or put off repairs, was he gambling? Then, too? Was I making sacrifices while he threw money away? You can ask him these questions, I reminded her gently. That's part of the agreement. Complete honesty. I'm not sure I want the answers, she admitted. Some truths might be too painful. 3 weeks into January, Dad completed the initial phase of his treatment program. The facility psychologist requested a family session, which we approached with a mixture of trepidation and hope. The man who greeted us in the sterile conference room was almost unrecognizable. My father had always been robust, commanding his presence, filling any space he occupied. This Richard Hayes was diminished somehow, thinner, grayer, his shoulders curled inward, as if carrying a visible weight. Thank you for coming, he said, his voice rougher than I remembered. I know you had every reason to refuse. The therapist Dr. Marshall guided us through what he called structured reconciliation dialogue. Dad had prepared statements for each of us, starting with Mom, then moving to Jackson and Abigail. When my turn came, I steeled myself for platitudes, for the kind of generic apology that acknowledges wrongdoing, without truly accepting responsibility. What I heard instead left me speechless. Madison, Dad began, his hands trembling slightly as he held his notes. From the day you were born, I have failed you in ways large and small, not because you were inadequate, but because you reflected parts of myself I couldn't face. Your determination, your clarity of purpose, your unwillingness to compromise your values, 2Ds. These qualities terrified me because they highlighted my own weaknesses. He looked up, meeting my eyes directly. When you joined the army, I wasn't disappointed. I was afraid. Afraid you would become even stronger, even more capable of seeing through me. And when you began sending money home, money you earned through real sacrifice, while I was losing money through self-indulgence, the shame became unbearable. The text message I sent you was the lowest point of my life. I knew in that moment that I had become someone unrecognizable, someone who would deny his own daughter a Christmas homecoming to protect his secrets. There is no justification for that cruelty. All I can say is that the man who sent that message was imprisoned by addiction, shame, and fear. I don't expect forgiveness, Madison. What I did to you, the theft, the forgery, the rejection, may be unforgivable, but I want you to know that I see you now. I see your strength, your integrity, your resilience, and I am more proud of you than I have words to express, though I had no right to be proud of someone I treated so terribly. The room fell silent when he finished. I was aware of Mom crying softly beside me, of Jackson's tense breathing, of Abigail's hand reaching for mine. But mostly I was aware of the man across from me, not the father I had idolized and feared in equal measure throughout my childhood, but a flawed human being doing the hardest thing possible, facing the truth about himself. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, I said finally, but I'm willing to try to understand. That's where we start. The rest of January passed in a blur of legal meetings, financial restructuring, and family counseling sessions. Dad remained in treatment, his progress reports cautiously optimistic. The house was formally secured through legal documents, ensuring it could never be sold without unanimous family consent. My military benefits were slowly being untangled from the web of fraud, though some of the money would never be recovered. As February approached, I faced a decision about returning to active duty. My unit was redeploying soon, and I had to determine whether to join them or request reassignment stateside to continue dealing with the family situation. You should go back, Mom surprised me by saying one evening. Your career shouldn't be derailed by what's happened here. Are you sure you'll be okay? I asked. There's still so much to sort through. We'll manage, she said with newfound resolve. Your grandmother is staying through spring. Jackson and his wife are moving back to Cedarville temporarily. Abigail will return to school, but come home weekends. And she straightened her shoulders. I'm stronger than I realized. Your father and I have a long road ahead, but whether we walk it together or separately, I'll be okay. The day before my departure, I visited Dad at the treatment facility. He had visibly improved. Clearer eyes, steadier hands, a calmness that seemed genuine rather than forced. We walked the facility grounds, snow crunching under our boots, our breath forming clouds in the cold air. The house looks different, he said after a while. Mom's rearranged things. New curtains in the living room. It's not just curtains, I replied. Everything's different now. It has to be. He nodded, accepting this truth without defensiveness. I know, and it should be. The old way wasn't working, wasn't honest. He paused by a snow-covered bench. Madison, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have said years ago. I waited, expecting another confession of wrongdoing. I am so incredibly proud of you, he said instead. Not because of anything you've accomplished, though those accomplishments are significant. I'm proud of who you are. Your integrity, your courage. The way you've handled this whole situation with more maturity than I've shown in my entire life. Dad. Let me finish. I spent years feeling threatened by your strength instead of celebrating it. That was my failure, not yours. You never needed to earn my approval or pride. You always deserved it just by being who you are. For the first time since I'd received his devastating text message, I felt tears spring to my eyes. Not tears of hurt or anger, but a complex emotion I couldn't immediately name, something like relief, mixed with a wistful recognition of what our relationship could have been all along. I'm trying to forgive you, I said honestly. I'm not there yet, but I'm trying. That's more than I deserve, he replied, and it's enough for now. As we continued walking, a strange thought occurred to me, the father I had longed for throughout my childhood, the one who would be proud of me, who would see me clearly, who would value my strength rather than be threatened by it, was finally emerging, ironically, through the very crisis that had nearly destroyed our family. People were rarely all good or all bad. They were complex, contradictory, capable of both terrible mistakes and genuine growth. My father had committed serious wrongs, but he was also showing capacity for genuine change. Whether that change would last, whether it would be enough to rebuild what had been broken, those questions remained unanswered. But as we completed our circuit of the grounds, returning to the building where he would continue his recovery, while I returned to my military duties, I realized something important. I no longer needed his approval to know my own worth. The little girl, desperate for her father's pride, had grown into a woman who understood her own value. I'll call when I can, I said as we parted. And Dad, take it one day at a time. That's how we get through the hardest missions. He smiled slightly at my military metaphor. One day at a time, he agreed. And Madison, thank you for not giving up on me completely. I wouldn't have blamed you if you had. As I drove away, I thought about forgiveness, how it wasn't a single moment of absolution, but a process sometimes, a lifelong one. I couldn't erase what had happened, couldn't undo the hurt or reclaim all that was lost, but I could choose how to carry it forward, how to let it shape me without defining me. The Christmas that should have been a joyful homecoming had instead become a painful reckoning. But perhaps in the long run it was the homecoming our family had needed most, a return to truth, to accountability, to the difficult but necessary work of authentic relationship. And in my own heart, I had finally come home to a truth I had always known, but never fully embraced. I was enough exactly as I was. No father's approval required. 1 year passed, then 2. The rhythm of military life continued. Deployments, training exercises, promotions. I returned home more regularly, shorter visits but more frequent ones. Each trip showed me a family in various stages of healing. Dad completed his residential treatment program and moved into a structured outpatient recovery process. The legal agreement required complete transparency in all financial matters, with Mom having final authority over accounts. He found work at a local hardware store, a significant step down from his previous management position, but one he approached with a humility that would have been unimaginable in the man I knew before. It's honest work, he told me during my first visit after his treatment. No corner offices, no expense accounts. But at the end of each day, I know exactly what I've accomplished and what I've earned. Mom transformed perhaps the most dramatically. The quiet, accommodating woman who had orbited Dad's stronger personality for decades discovered her own gravity. She returned to college to finish the degree she'd abandoned. When they married, joined the church finance committee, and started a support group for families affected by gambling addiction. I spent 30 years believing my role was to support your father's dreams, she explained as we planted spring bulbs in the garden she had redesigned. Now I'm discovering my own. Their marriage survived, though, in a form neither would have recognized before. They attended counseling weekly, practiced what therapists called radical honesty, and rebuilt their relationship on a foundation of earned trust rather than assumed loyalty. Some days I still get angry, Mom confided during my second Christmas home, the one that should have been. When I think about the lies, the secrets, the years of deception, it can still make my blood boil. But then I look at who he's becoming, who I'm becoming, and I realize we might end up with something better than what we thought we had before. Jackson and his wife welcomed their first child, naming her Rose after our grandmother, who had returned to her assisted living facility, but remained a powerful presence in family decisions. Abigail graduated college and started teaching at the local elementary school. Her boyfriend, now her fiancé. And me, the army, remained my anchor, but I found myself less defined by it than before. I took leave to help Mom redecorate the house, assisted Jackson with baby Rose's nursery, attended Abigail's teaching conferences. The family that had existed in my periphery while I sought my father's elusive approval became central to my life in new and nurturing ways. My relationship with Dad evolved slowly, cautiously. The forgery and theft were addressed through the legal agreement with regular payments, gradually restoring what had been taken. The deeper wounds, the rejection, the lifelong emotional distance, the Christmas homecoming that never happened, those required different kinds of repayment. I missed so much, Dad said during a fishing trip we took during my third year post-confrontation. We sat in a small boat on the lake where he had taught Jackson to fish, but never me. All those years focused on what you weren't, instead of seeing who you were. Why did you need me to be something specific? I asked a question that had lingered for years. He thought for a long time before answering. I think I was trying to create a family that looked like what I thought a perfect family should be. Jackson, following in my footsteps. Abigail being the sweet, uncomplicated daughter, you being. He faltered. Being what, Dad? Being less challenging. Less like my father who never thought I measured up. Less like the parts of myself I didn't want to face. He cast his line, watching it arc over the still water. It wasn't about you, Madison. It was about my own inadequacies. But you paid the price for that, and I'm so deeply sorry. These conversations happened in fragments across months and years. No single discussion healed everything, but each one removed another splinter from the wound, allowing cleaner healing. The financial restitution progressed steadily. By the 5th year, most of my stolen benefits had been repaid. Dad never missed a payment, working extra shifts, selling his collectibles, living frugally to fulfill his obligation. The money mattered less to me than the commitment it represented, his determination to make tangible amends for tangible wrongs. My military career flourished. I made captain, specialized in logistics and strategic planning, received commendations that my entire family attended. At each ceremony, Dad sat quietly in the audience, his pride evident but restrained, aware that he was still earning the right to fully claim it. Your colleagues respect you so much, he observed after one such event. I can see it in how they defer to your expertise, seek your opinion. It took time to build that trust, I replied, the parallel to our own relationship intentional. He nodded, understanding. Trust is earned through consistent action over time. I'm still working on that part. The Christmas season remained complicated for us. The ghost of that first rejected homecoming lingered, making the holidays both a reminder of betrayal and an opportunity for redemption. We developed new traditions, volunteer work at local shelters, progressive dinners with extended family, a special celebration on the 18th of December, Tooth Date, of Dad's fateful text message now reclaimed as Truth Day, when we each shared something difficult but honest with the family. During the 6th Christmas, after the confrontation sitting in the living room of the house that had nearly been lost, I watched my family with new eyes. Jackson's daughter toddling after Abigail's new puppy. Mom and Dad in matching sweaters, their hands linked casually. Grandma Rose holding court from her favorite armchair, sharp as ever, at 93. This was not the perfect family I had imagined during lonely nights in Afghanistan. It was messier, more complicated, shaped by both betrayal and forgiveness. But it was real in a way that my idealized version never had been. "Penny, for your thoughts," Dad said, sitting beside me on the window seat. "I was just thinking about expectations versus reality," I replied. "How sometimes what we get isn't what we wanted, but it might be what we needed." He nodded slowly. "Like a father who fails catastrophically, but then has to rebuild himself into someone better." "Something like that." "Madison," he said, his voice soft enough that only I could hear. "I know I can never fully make up for the past. Some debts can't be repaid in full. But I want you to know that the work of trying to be worthy of being your father has made me a better man than I ever would have been otherwise." In that moment, I realized something profound. The forgiveness I had been gradually extending to my father had never been about absolving him of responsibility. It had been about freeing myself from the weight of anger and disappointment. It had been about making space for something new to grow in the cleared ground of our relationship. "We're okay, Dad," I said, meaning it perhaps for the first time. Not perfect, not what we might have been without the detours, but okay. His eyes glistened. "That's more than I dared hope for." Later that night, as the house quieted and family members drifted to their rooms, I stood on the back porch, looking at the winter stars. The same stars that had watched over me in Afghanistan, the same stars that had witnessed my father's deception and subsequent redemption, the same stars that would continue their silent vigil over whatever came next for our family. The military had taught me that resilience wasn't about avoiding damage, it was about how you rebuilt afterward. My family had been broken, but in the rebuilding we had created something stronger, more authentic, and ultimately more valuable than what had existed before. Some people never get the father they deserve. Some fathers never become the men their children need them to be. But sometimes, through painful reckonings and honest confrontations, people can grow into better versions of themselves. Not perfect, not unmarked by past failures, but genuinely transformed. As I prepared to return to my unit after the holidays, I realized I had finally found peace with my father, not because he had become perfect, but because I no longer needed him to be. The wounded child seeking validation had become a woman who understood that true validation comes from within, enhanced by relationships, but not dependent on them. The Christmas homecoming that never happened had set in motion a journey none of us could have anticipated, a journey through betrayal and forgiveness, through painful truth and hard-won wisdom. It wasn't the story I would have chosen, but it was ours. And in its messy, complicated reality, it had shaped us all into stronger, more compassionate, more authentic versions of ourselves. Have you ever had to rebuild trust with someone who deeply hurt you? What did you learn from that experience? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this journey of forgiveness and family healing resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with others who might need to hear that even the most painful betrayals can sometimes lead to unexpected growth. Thank you for being part of this community where we can share our truths and support each other through life's challenges.